Okay, good morning, everyone. It is 11 a.m. and I'm calling the Texas Early Learning Council meeting to order. I'm Reagan Miller, the Director of Child Care and Early Learning at the Texas Workforce Commission and also the Chair of the Texas Early Learning Council. So I want to thank all of the members for joining us, the staff who are joining us to make presentations, as well as the public who are able to join. As with our past meetings, we are producing this as a Zoom webinar. Council members, presenters, and agency staff are participating as panelists, while members of the public are able to participate in listen-only mode. As a reminder to our members, presenters, and staff, please keep your electronic devices on mute when not speaking. If we forget to mute ourselves, Megan may mute us as needed. You all know Megan Schneider as our Interagency Deputy Director of Early Childhood Support, serving as today's meeting facilitator. And try to remember to say your name before you speak, members and panelists. We did have an opportunity for the public to request to provide public comment. It closed yesterday at 5 p.m. for written comment. We did not receive any requests for public comment, but members of the public may still request to provide oral public comment today by emailing your request to Megan Schneider, and Megan has put instructions into the chat, which you can see on Zoom. So with that, we are going to go to our October 2024 minutes approval. Members, you should have a copy of these draft minutes in the material that you received. And I want to see if there are any edits to those draft October meeting minutes that you received. Okay, hearing none, do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
Reagan, this is Kim Coffran. I'll motion to approve.
Kim, thank you for the motion. And a second by, was that Stephanie?
Stephanie, yep.
Thank you, Stephanie. All right. Pending any discussion, we are going to approve the minutes through a roll call vote for today's meeting that Megan will facilitate.
All right, thanks, Reagan. So when I call your name, please reply for, against, or abstain. And as a reminder, you don't have to abstain if you missed the last meeting. You're still allowed to approve the minutes. Sarah Abrahams. Ruthie Arsmendez.
Approved.
Weldon Beard. Carrie Breeden.
Approved.
April Crawford. Alfrema Giles.
Approved.
Melissa Hoisington.
For.
Becky Hess-Keeler. Kim Coffran.
Approved.
Corey Lee.
For.
Beatrice Mata. Reagan Miller.
Or
Maricela Nava. Stephanie Rubin.
For.
Amber Scanlon.
For.
Kirsten Schwab.
For.
Jennifer Stockmer.
For.
Megan Young.
For.
Great. The motion to approve the October 2024 meeting minutes has carried. And I will pass it back to you, Reagan.
all right, thank you, Megan. Okay, so we are to public comment. We did not have any written public comment. And Megan, in the past few minutes, did you receive any requests for oral public comment? I have not
It's just-
seen any.
Yeah, I was just doing a quick check and no, I did not.
Okay, then we are going to move to our next update, and that's our Texas Early Learning Strategic Plan. So as a reminder, we developed this strategic plan as part of the preschool development grant work in 2023, and we're sharing progress updates at each of the Texas Early Learning Council meetings. Next slide. The plan is divided into 4 goals, and today we're going to hear updates on some actions and strategies related to Goal 1, which is family access, navigation, and engagement. So on the next slide, our first update is on Goal 1, Strategy 1.1, streamline intake and administrative systems for parents and providers to make it easier for families to navigate early learning programs and services. And specifically, we're going to hear some updates on action item 1.3.2 regarding activities to help fund and expand Help Me Grow Texas and Healthy Childcare Texas. So I'm going to pass this over to Shruti Aris-Mendez and Bridget Losey from DSHS for an update on this particular item.
Thanks, Reagan. So we have Bridget Losey on the call. She's our Help Me Grow coordinator. So she'll be doing the presentation. I'm going to turn it over to her.
Thank you all so much. I'm really excited to be here. Like everyone said, my name is Bridget Losey, and I am the Help Me Grow coordinator at the Department of State Health Services with the Maternal and Child Health Unit. And I'm really excited to share Help Me Grow. I'm really passionate about it. So next slide, please. So Help Me Grow is an evidence-based system framework. It promotes child development by working to successfully link families with young children to community resources that can meet their needs. And the overarching purpose of the Help Me Grow system model is to improve children's access to developmental screening by expanding the screening and referral services in settings like pediatric offices, preschools, and childcare programs, increasing the use of online developmental screening tools, for example, ages and stages questionnaires, and implementing public awareness campaigns. Oh, I'm not ready to go yet. There we go. So increasing use of online developmental screening tools, ages and stages questionnaires, implementing public awareness campaigns on just the importance of screening and early childhood development, and then creating a data collection system to identify any successes, gaps, or delays in that program service delivery. And so this theory of change was established by the Help Me Grow National Center to really guide that implementation so that our local communities can advance developmental promotion, early detection, and those linkage to services. Next slide, please. So let's go into that Help Me Grow system model overview. So across the country, Help Me Grow looks and feels different in each community, each state, but these 4 cooperative and interdependent core components characterize the Help Me Grow model. So it's a centralized access point, which is a phone number where families can directly reach a Help Me Grow navigator. The navigators will assist those families and professionals that call the line in connecting children, families to those appropriate community-based programs and services. So for example, a caregiver can call the centralized access in their community with a question about their child's development, if they need parenting, support, education, or even with a basic need. Family and community outreach supports the education to advance developmental promotion, and it really grows awareness of the system and the services that it can offer to our families and those community-facing providers. And then child healthcare provider outreach, which supports our community-based pediatricians by really enhancing that developmental promotion and early detection activities. And that support is provided by educating and motivating our providers to really conduct those regular systematic surveillance and screening of young children. They also provide community-based pediatricians with access to the centralized access point that can serve as the care coordination arm for our busy pediatric practices. And then data collection, which supports that evaluation, identifying any gaps, bolstering advocacy efforts, and guiding that quality improvement so our system is constantly becoming better. And then to reach the full fidelity or full implementation of the Help Me Grow system model, all of those core components must be met by our Help Me Grow affiliates. Next slide, please. So why Help Me Grow? Why choose Help Me Grow? Well, we all know, and this group knows, that childhood systems building is really important. And the Help Me Grow system model really aims to provide coordinated and efficient approach to early childhood systems by integrating the existing programs in that community and then ensuring families can really access that support, resources, and education. Next slide, please. So DSHS, we are the lead organization for Help Me Grow Texas, and we support our affiliates, our local affiliates, in implementing that Help Me Grow system model to really meet the unique needs of the families that are in their communities. So we lead the quality improvement and communication at the state level. We serve as the intake point for communities that are interested in joining the Help Me Grow network and the connection between the regional communities and the Help Me Grow National Center. And we're the lead agency in the statewide coordination efforts of Help Me Grow. DSHS is also the Texas representative in the national affiliate network, which provides opportunities to our affiliates to participate in those learning experiences with Help Me Grow National and collaborate with other states in the network. So we'll go back a little bit and talk about kind of how we got to where we are with Help Me Grow Texas. Next slide, please. So here's our Help Me Grow Texas history, starting with Project Launch. So Texas's participation in Project Launch, linking actions for unmet needs in children's health, that really led to the state's involvement with Help Me Grow. Project Launch, if you're not familiar with it, it's a national initiative to promote the wellness of young children with that focus on developmental screening and assessment of child development. And so while exploring strategies to meet this need, My Health, My Resources of Tarrant County, MHMR, found the Help Me Grow model. And so by the late summer of 2019, MHMR had joined the Help Me Grow affiliate network, began implementing the model, and that was the first established local system in Texas, in our state. And then MHMR, with that quickness that they were implementing that model, word and interest just quickly spread. In late 2019, Help Me Grow National Center came to us in Texas with the opportunity to really support that creation of a state organizing entity and system implementation in 6 communities. DSHS officially joined the national network in March of 2020 as the organizing entity. And then shortly after that, we created our first cohort opportunity. So the first cohort of the 6 systems was launched in July of 2020. The second cohort of 3 systems was launched in November of 2022. And then through the Preschool Development Grant, that PDG cohort of 3 new systems was launched in May 2023. I realize it's now winter of 2025, but there hasn't been any funding changes since this slide was published. Next slide, please. So this map shows our reach in Texas, our 12 Help Me Grow affiliates. They're currently serving 50 counties. These affiliates here listed have worked with us to identify, implement strategies that position their communities for success. And they also receive technical assistance from DSHS, as well as technical assistance from Help Me Grow National Center to advance their existing early childhood systems. The technical assistance topics can include early childhood coalition building, developing a leadership team, healthcare provider outreach, developing referral pathways, just really anything that we can do to support that implementation. Next slide. Okay, so if we continue to kind of look at Help Me Grow Texas Reach, we're going to take a look at the Help Me Grow National Fidelity Assessments. And like we talked about before with those 4 core components, the affiliates have data to collect around all of those 4 core components. So they conduct these annual assessments just to really assess the growth and fidelity to the Help Me Grow system model. So this isn't all the data that was this is not all the data that was collected by Help Me Grow National, but I think this provides a pretty good snapshot from calendar year 2023 of just those family and community outreach activities. And so a CAP activity would be considered anyone calling the affiliate centralized access point, call center for information, for a need. And then those referrals there would be referrals to an outside community agency, providing any additional resources to the family or child. So as you can see here, over 46,000 people called the Help Me Grow Texas affiliate for assistance in calendar year 2023. And over 10,000 children and families were served, over 6,000 receiving a referral. And essentially more than 7,000 people were reached through affiliates through family and community outreach, 17,000. So, I mean, they're just reaching a lot of families in the areas that they're serving. Next slide. And so that last slide was calendar year 2023, but DSHS also collects data for fiscal years as well. And so here are our numbers for some of our numbers from 24. And it just really shows a lot of growth. And so see here in FY24, our affiliates reached more than 11,000 families through their centralized access points. In FY23, that was 7,000 families. And then they made 21,000 unique referrals in FY23. That was 5,000 unique referrals. So a significant increase, reaching more families, and parents, caregivers, family members, and children are included in that number of individuals through events coordinated by affiliates to really promote awareness of child development. And in FY23, Help Me Grow affiliates reached 5,000 families. So an incredible increase there, 231%. I would say that the significant increase in families served through Help Me Grow can really be attributed to several components of Help Me Grow. Our affiliates have been really proactively strengthening those community connections through expanded centralized access points, which have really just enhanced awareness and engagement with their organizations. They've broadened their resource directories to include a wider range of services and resources, just ensuring that families receive a comprehensive and comprehensive support really tailored to their needs. They've been streamlining their intake processes to make it as easy as possible for our families to navigate those early learning resources and services. And then additionally, the strategic partnerships with our key organizations and stakeholders within the community have really just amplified their reach and their ability to serve. And then our affiliates have expanded their service areas over the last fiscal year, which has really enabled Help Me Grow to extend its support to previously underserved areas. So I would say those combined efforts and more could really support the increase in the numbers of families that are benefiting from this program. Help Me Grow North Texas has reached full implementation of the system model, and we have affiliates that are so very close to reaching full implementation in FY25. Next slide, please. So just Help Me Grow just really continues to elevate the early childhood landscape by building those partnerships, enhancing those community resources, connecting families to critical developmental and support services. So I can't say enough great things about Help Me Grow. I've been in this position for about 8 months now, and I'm just really passionate about it. And I think it really do amazing things in Texas for our families and kiddos. So I'm sure if there's any questions, we would love to take them. My team and I are here to answer any questions y'all have. And feel free to reach out to the Help Me Grow Texas email here. Anytime, I would love to hear from you. So thank you so much.
Bridget, thanks for that presentation. Let me see if council members have questions or comments.
Yes, ma'am.
Stephanie.
Hi, thank you for that background. I had a couple questions and then one that's a little bit about scaling up even more. So on your slide where you have the sort of, number of families maybe calling in, and then the numbers who are, I don't know if it's the word served and then referred. Can you explain a little bit more about who's calling in, who doesn't necessarily move to the referral stage, what kind of questions they have, or how are they getting there? And if, so that's one. The second one is, it's amazing that you're referring families to services, or the communities are. How do we know that is there some follow-up to know whether that handoff occurs and they're accessing services? Is that study that the local communities are doing or Dishes is doing? So those are two of my questions about the data, and then I have another one kind of about funding and scaling up.
So let me go back to the first one. So with the fidelity assessments, any family can call the call center, the organization's call center. And when they call, it could be for anything, right? It could be, my water shut off. What do I do? Or I need diapers, or I have a concern about my child's development. And from there, then they would refer to any of the agencies that they're within their organization that they know about, that they can offer services. And then there's always that follow-up and linkage to follow up with the family and say, hey, was that referral? Did that work for you? Do you have what you need? Do you know where to go next? And so there's always that warm referral and that warm handoff. So yes, there is that follow-up there, and that's a key piece of Help Me Grow to ensure that linkage was successful.
Can you go back to that? Sorry, can you go back to that data slide for a second? That might help me understand the move
Yes.
from one to the other. Yeah.
Yes.
So, so it says families served that resulted in a referral. So you're saying that 6,400 is like that referral is like there's some confirmation that the family got to that place and was able
Yes.
to get a service at least, or?
Yes, ma'am. So family served, it could be that the family has an immediate need, that they don't need long-term services. Like, we're in a pinch and we need to float until payday, and do you have an access number for a food bank? If a family served that would be resulted in a referral, that would be something like, my kid needs follow-up. We have a developmental delay concern. They need to see their pediatrician and then receive services from that with speech therapy or in that space. So that would be the referral, and then the follow-up with that.
Okay. Yeah, I just think what's most powerful about it too is that it's not just the I'll call it an output, right? That like there is a referral, but that the family's getting services. So if there's a way to help articulate that through the data or the narrative, that like it's leading to families getting something beyond just the piece of paper referral, that's I think, a really good way of communicating the benefit of Help Me Grow.
And I feel like that's a really great point. Thank you so much. And I think that a lot of times too, I mean, a family will come in and say, oh, I have this one need, but then they'll realize after talking to our affiliates, well, they can also help meet these other 3 needs, right? Parenting, education, basic needs, family support, all of those things. And so maybe one call can lead to the family being helped in other ways as well.
Right. I mean, it would be wonderful also to be able to share those data that show, like, of the referrals, you know, maybe a third of them are for childcare services or disability services, or, you know, what percent are for basic needs, what percent are for care and education, or you know, or something else, just to get a sense of what kind of families are calling in for what sort of needs. And I'm sure that that's in the data you collect, but that I think would be interesting to know at some point.
Oh, yes. And I will say too, kind of another thing about the data is that this is just a really small piece of the fidelity assessments that our affiliates have to complete. And so there's only 3 buckets listed here, right? But they're collecting on the data collection bucket as well. And it's each site, so we can see each site and their numbers in comparison to the total Texas numbers, in comparison to the whole Help Me Grow national network. So we're able to compare where we are in Texas to other states that are also a multi-system state.
Okay. I guess my other question, I don't know if you can answer this, or
Sure.
is about the funding. So it's my understanding that Help Me Grow has been funded through multiple sources, including the PDG grant, I think, and some other funds that may have an endpoint. So I was just curious a little bit, and this is maybe more of a budget question, about what does scaling up Help Me Grow look like in terms of funding? Or, you know, maybe that's over a course of 10 years, but do you have any information about, like, what's the funding level now from, I guess?
I will say that we are DSHS funds are 6 sites, and then FSS funds those 3 other sites under PDG. And so DSHS's funding is from Title V,
right,
to support this. And I think if Ms. Shruti, if you have anything to add, by all means.
Yeah, so of the 12 sites, most of them are being funded directly through Title V funding. So Title V funding, it is something that we have to apply to for every single year. And sometimes the funding does change depending on what the federal funds give us. And then the other 3 sites are funded through that early childhood development, preschool development grant. And we have been working with other organizations to figure out what we could potentially do to scale up as needed.
So the PDG funded ones will lose, that money will end sometime this year, I guess.
I believe it's August of this year, but we have been communicating with them to make sure that they continue getting some type of funding, either through Title V or other ways.
Okay.
And Stephanie, if I could answer on that, the technical assistance that Bridget provides will still be available to all Help Me Grow sites regardless of funding. Obviously, funding is the critical piece that allows them to employ individuals and do the work that they need to do. If they don't have the funding, our technical assistance is still offered. We just don't have any money to support the work that they do. So we can help them and connect them with maybe our grant section to help them find other grants that may help them connect and find other funding that Title V can do that. But that TA is always available going forward, and we can try to assist with funding as best we can as far as that goes. So,
Shruti, will you remind me whether there's an exceptional item or a funding boost in the Dishes LAR?
For Help Me Grow, not that specifically, but I believe there might be one coming out for the 89th session. I do want to speak to Tim's comment as well. I'm watching the chat as well. He had a question around if any funds are coming from state funding. So between either federal Title V or the maintenance of effort that we've received from the state, there is a combination of funding. I'll have to get our finance folks to figure out exactly what the breakdown is, but it is coming primarily either through Title V or the state side.
Right, and Kirsten has her hand up.
Hello, everybody. Nice to meet you. I'm Kirsten Schwab from Texas PBS, and just wanted to make sure that you were aware of an effort that we have partnered with United Ways of Texas on called Bright by Text. And I know over the years we've talked to different folks at Help Me Grow about this resource, but would love to have a follow-up conversation if possible to just see if we can coordinate with that resource as well.
Yeah, that sounds great, Kristen. I'll send you a comment with my email address and we can touch base.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
And so if in the areas where Help Me Grow is in place, what's the best way for folks to let families know about the availability of these resources? And then if you're a program in one of those areas, how do you make sure that you're also connected with that local resource? So I guess sort of, how do you make sure families are fully aware and then services in those areas are appropriately connected?
Oh, sorry, I was muted. So families being aware comes from that family and community outreach cog that you saw. I mean, all the outreach that our affiliates are doing and making those connections, and then building up their resource directory so they have those resources in the community that they can share out to the families. And so really it's great. I mean, Texas being so big, it's great that we have those local affiliates because they know what's going on in Hays County or Bastrop, and it's just so large we wouldn't know. So we depend on a lot of the affiliates just doing that family and community outreach to make the families aware of everything. And then go ahead.
So is that, if somebody wanted to reach out, is that posted on your website? So if somebody was on the call and said, gosh, I really want to make sure I'm connected with my local affiliate.
Absolutely. It is on our front facing website, and I will drop the link in the chat for y'all so you can take a look. The map's there so you can download it, and then the organization's contact information to reach out to that local organization directly.
Wonderful.
And to follow up on that, Reagan, if I could, the Help Me Grow Texas and the affiliates like Help Me Grow North Texas, there aren't an existing community organization like a United Way or something like that have a system that allows them to meet the needs of Help Me Grow system framework that we approved them to become. So they're a known entity, they're a known community resource out there. That we just add a Help Me Grow Texas framework that they utilize to make those linkages with their community partners already. So they can contact, on the Help Me Grow Texas website, there's phone numbers and addresses for the Help Me Grow leads on there that anybody can reach out to. Families can reach out to their central access point phone number to access those resources as well. So those are the two ways that families and local stakeholders can contact those Help Me Grow Texas sites.
Fantastic. Council members, any other questions or comments? All right. Bridget, thank you very much. Okay, so we're going to move on to our next strategic plan update. This is related to strategy 1.2, increasing the availability and supply of early learning programs and services. So Dana Perez from Child Care Regulation at HHSC is going to discuss the progress of action item 1.2.5 regarding child care regulations navigators. So we'll turn it over to Child Care Regulation.
Good morning. Thank you, Reagan. I'm so appreciative of the opportunity to speak with everyone today and excited to see everyone. so that I can share the work that we're doing with the childcare navigators. As you all may know, during the peak of COVID, it really brought to light the need for childcare expansion. And so as the director of the Unregulated Operations Unit and interacting with applicants and trying to get them into the fold of childcare regulation, we really saw the struggle that some applicants were having and the need for extra assistance to kind of handhold applicants during that initial application process. And so thankfully, in partnership with the Texas Workforce Commission, we were able to hire some temporary navigators. At that time, we had only had 5 navigators that we were hiring, but have since, through the current grant process, have been able to hire a total of 8 navigators that are located strategically statewide. So we have them in areas where we looked at whether or not there was a childcare desert in that area, the need that we were receiving for operations in that area, as well as through our unregulated work, seeing the number of intakes and investigations that we were having in different areas of the state, so that we could strategically place these navigators in areas where we knew that they could really have a good opportunity to work with applicants. And so these navigators vary in experience. A lot of them have been administrators or have worked in childcare extensively. Some have retired from childcare regulation. And so they have the experience of working with applicants during the application process. And then we also have some staff with some project management experience that has really come into being a benefit for the navigators. So when these navigators are assigned to an applicant, like I said, they're really working with them to kind of handhold them and work alongside them during the application process. So whether it be they have questions about completing the application materials, knowing what information they need to submit when they're submitting their applications. Some of the applications require training before they turn in their application. So trying to help coordinate where they can locate and identify training resources. We also provide resource coordination for those applicants. So many times applicants are needing help with funding sources. So we try to provide them with different opportunities that we're aware of for grants, startup grants, or new business owner grants, different ways to help supplement their income as they're starting that business. We want to provide them with resources that are not only going to help them build and start their childcare business, but will help sustain them, because we don't want them to gain their permit and then close because it's just not financially feasible, or because they become frustrated and they can't locate resources. So we want to do whatever we can to give them the supports that they need to really be successful. One of the other key pieces is that our navigators work very closely with our child care monitoring inspectors, who are the ones who are processing the applications, so that we can help fill in those gaps, communicate what the needs are of those applicants and where they may be struggling initially. Also helping to support the monitoring inspectors, so that if they've got a large workload and they're not able to return telephone calls, or if there needs to be an additional layer of customer service to help them during that application process, then that's where the navigators are kind of filling in the gaps for those providers. Our goal is to improve issuance rates. And so you can see by the bar chart provided, the blue is applicants who have gone through the application process without navigator support and have had a permit issued. Those that are in orange are those applicants who have had navigator support and the issuance rate for applicants. And so you can see across the board, those that are working with navigators are having an increased issuance rate, which we are super excited about. It really reflects on the passion that our navigators have. You know, they're not only helping them through the process, but they're encouraging these providers. They're letting them know how much they're valued and how much their community and families need them. And so it's really, I'm really inspired whenever I see the excitement that they have in doing their jobs and the success that they're having. And so we are continuing to work through the preschool development block grant for the navigator work through the end of December of 2025. And then at that point, we've started some conversations with TWC about pulling them into the CCDF annual contract. And so that really is our goal, to work towards making these positions permanent, because we've seen such great work that they're doing, and the improved issuance rates is really compelling. So please feel free to let me know if you have any questions.
All right, members, questions or comments? Kim.
I think I'm echoing Tim's question. Hey Dana, how are you? Good to see you.
You too.
So you have the unregulated care unit that goes out and finds home, those are typically home providers. And then you're trying to get them into the system. So two parts is, are those automatically into the navigator system? And then what about the childcare center that when they just apply, do they have an option? How does that get determined if they get a navigator or not?
So any applicant that it's applying to be registered or licensed, so that could be before and after school programs, childcare programs, school age programs, and then our licensed homes and our registered homes, they are all assigned a navigator at the point that they apply. For our unregulated operations, we have assigned one of the newer navigators that they are actually, their workload consists of those that have started as unregulated and are applying to be listed family homes, because that's where we see the most of them applying.
Right.
And we're helping them through that listed family home process. I will say though, those that are applying to be listed that are working with the navigator is also telling them and talking to them about the benefits of applying to be, say, registered, so that they would get additional resources and supports if they were to move from listed to registered.
Right. That was going to be my follow-up question, knowing that we continue to see that decrease in our family home providers, especially in that registered and licensed. What the push is to get our listed homes into that registered and licensed category.
Absolutely.
Great. Thank you.
All right.
I have one other add-on question from Kim.
Stephanie.
Do the navigators help with, and maybe you covered this, with helping programs move through the Texas Rising Star process?
We do help them coordinate and get connected with the Texas Rising Star process. Of course, they're not trained enough to be able to guide them through that, but that is one of our main resources that we encourage them to become involved with the Texas Rising Star program.
And we actually, we co-authored a roadmap with childcare regulation for childcare programs to lay out how all of these things work together.
Yes, and that is a resource that they provide.
Yeah. I also want to note that, Becky, do you have a question?
Yes,
Comment?
I just wondered, since there's only 8 for the whole state, how are they divvied out? You know, like I live in Houston, for instance, which has tons of childcare desert, and then you have people out in the rural areas. How did you put that? I mean, you know, how are they divvied out across the state?
So I hope I don't forget, but we have one in Amarillo. We have one in the Abilene area. We have one in Longview. Actually, 2 in Longview. We have our lead who is also in Longview. We have one in Houston. We have 2 in the Austin area and 1 in San Antonio.
Okay, so then how is this through childcare licensing that they're attached to the childcare licensing group, Bureau or whatever, right? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Amber Scanlon. Is there any particular reason that there's not someone in Dallas or North Texas? And then secondly,
Oh, go ahead.
I'm just having trouble reading the chart in terms of data. What sort of data do you have that's demonstrating applications turning into regulated early learning centers? Like, how can we get a grasp of the trajectory of additional regulated access for communities that have some hard numbers to them?
We do a quarterly report as part of the grant. I think we could see about releasing that data because it is a little bit more thorough to explain and show the number of operations that they're working with, the specific types of permits that are being issued, and the workload of the navigators, if that would be helpful. For the Dallas area, we actually, when we initially were hiring, we did not have any qualified applicants for that area. And so the navigator that is out of Amarillo and the one that is in Longview, they both share parts of Region 3, which includes the Dallas-Fort Worth area.
Okay, yeah, I would just say as, a member of this group, obviously representing North Texas being one of the the fourth largest metropolitan area in the country with some of the most significant childcare deserts, that should this program receive additional funding, I would suggest that that be the number one issue that's discovered. I mean, it would be very, very hard from those folks from those areas to truly understand and be able to cover that large of a metropolitan area. And I don't know if you would consider rebalancing your portfolio of your 8 navigators, to have 2 in Austin and 0 in Dallas just seems like a huge miss. So I would definitely make that recommendation, and surely through, workforce boards and others, there's got to be easy ways to find people that are qualified for that work, or reach out to folks like us on this group who can help connect you to resources and organizations of qualified folks. And I say that because and especially the data, I think, is really important. The number one topic that is often mentioned is, lack of access to high quality early learning. And I just think that should be one of our number one priorities, is understanding, this program should really hit at the heart of addressing that need, and to have the data available of whether the effectiveness of these navigators in this program, or the opportunity to scale, or what's missing the mark. We should be elevating the results of this work to everybody, because this is the number one priority of so many. It's just such a huge issue, and it sounds like this work is really important. So I would be very interested in seeing the data. I think our elected officials should be aware of this data. And then again, I just would strongly recommend rebalancing the portfolio of navigators to make sure we don't miss out on the Dallas-Fort Worth area, which is, again, the 4th largest metropolitan area of the country, and certainly critical to the state of Texas.
We emphasize, Amber, that it's not that there is not a navigator that's covering Region 3 in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. They just do not live and have a headquarters in that area. It is being covered by 2 different navigators.
Yeah, no, and I would just say that I would still call that a miss. I mean, we all know how important community-based work is, and without living and working within a community, I think we all kind of know how that can go. I'm sure they're working very hard, but it doesn't mean that the Dallas-Fort Worth area doesn't, deserve a navigator that's living and based in that community.
All right. Kim, I also see your hand up.
Yeah, just to follow up to that conversation, Dana, is I'm assuming, and you know what to say when they assume, It's the majority of the navigators work, is it done virtually or are they going out in person and meeting with them individually? Like, what does that support look like?
Yes, it is done virtually, either through phone call. We have set up some Teams meeting with providers. One of the things, though, that the navigators are doing as well as far as travel is they're going and they're making contact with local workforce boards to connect, to make sure that they're on the same page with childcare expansion, making sure they have the updated information and resources that they need to help refer them to their programs. They are also attending unit meetings for the monitoring staff in their assigned areas so that they can make sure that they are sharing resources, information, talking about what the applicants are requesting in those areas so that when they're going out and doing their application inspections, they know like this is a need that has already been brought up that we may need to go over with these applicants as we're doing the application work in the field.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, members, any other questions or comments on this strategic? Maricela.
Yes, Maricela Nava, thank you for the opportunity. My question is there a directory of some sort of where we can make contact or make referrals like in South Texas? Would the closest area be San Antonio for us to?
So for the South Texas, we have our Houston navigator who works with South Texas, who is also bilingual.
Okay, and I'm so sorry. I'm meaning like the Rio Grande Valley.
Yes.
Yes, so it would be Houston.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and is there a site or maybe like an area on the HHS or the CCR website that maybe I might have missed as a directory of some sort of who would be the contact person for the regions?
We don't have it online, but I can send you the contact information for all of the navigators.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, members, any other questions or comments? All right.
Thank you.
All right, and then our final update on one of our current strategic plan action items, we are going to strategy 1.4 to increase family feedback to improve the quality and accessibility of early learning services. I'm going to pass it to Brandy Carter with TEA to discuss progress on action item 1.4.1, local education agencies and the pre-kindergarten family engagement plans. So over to Brandy.
Thank you so much, Reagan. Hello, all. Again, my name is Brandy Carter, Director of Family Engagement at TEA. Thank you so much for having me. I have a little cold, so please bear with me. In reference to this action item, I'm going to provide a brief update around the work that is being done to support LEAs in creating and posting their pre-K family engagement plans for families to access. As a bit of background, family engagement is one of the 6 statute required components of a high-quality pre-K program. The high-quality pre-K family engagement plan really serves as a resource that drives family engagement for the pre-kindergarten program. Specifically, pre-K programs serving eligible 4-year-olds must develop and implement a family engagement plan and post that plan online for families annually by November 1st. TEA's family engagement team provides support to LEAs in Texas in developing, posting, and reporting meaningful family engagement plans that meet the unique needs of each school's early childhood community. So we review family engagement plans submitted by districts and charters and provide outreach and support to ensure they meet statute requirements. LEAs, local educational agencies. Thank you, Amber, for that question. We also have, so they're pretty much school districts and charters. We have also been providing targeted support to LEAs whose plans did not meet statute requirements to help monitor improvements to the plans for the current school year prior to their required annual submission to TEA's Early Childhood Data System, better known as ECDS. And I'll go ahead and explain what that means. The data system really enables state reporting by collecting a variety of data on pre-K and kindergarten students. So submission of this data through ECDS is mandatory for all public schools and charter schools. The data provides valuable insights into early childhood education, and it's pretty much used to inform statewide decisions. We also provide on-demand support sessions attended by both LEAs and ESCs. And those are educational service centers where they support those districts, where participants have the opportunity to ask questions and receive support regarding changes or updates to statute requirements. Also looking at how to ensure engagement strategies are meaningful for their intended audience and how to align engagement efforts across other programs such as Title I, Part A, and special education. For instance, Title I has a family engagement policy, so it's not the same as a family engagement plan, but you could have one plan that encompasses both the family engagement plan and the family engagement policy. As well as strategies to intentionally engage families and make improvements based on their feedback. I'm going to move on to some of the support strategies that we've used, and Megan will so kindly drop our family engagement rubric in the chat as I speak to this. So last year we developed a rubric to support and guide LEAs when developing and or improving their family engagement plan. So we use this rubric to evaluate the thoroughness, intentionality, and level of completion of LEA's high-quality pre-K family engagement plans. So this rubric is broken down into 2 sections if you get a chance to check it out. So there are statute required components, which are mandatory, and then there are TEA recommended components. So an example of a required component is an LEA evaluates family engagement efforts and also uses evaluations for continuous improvement. And then an example of a recommended component is LEAs include a Texas home visiting program or partnerships with an entity such as United Way in the plan to support families with child development and school readiness skills and strategies. So hopefully you can take a look at that. As we address the measure of success to increase the number of LEAs submitting a valid website link for pre-kindergarten family engagement plans, we are happy to report that last year's June submission resulted in LEAs meeting this requirement at 95%, which is exciting. So this was a 12% increase from the previous year. And then with that, TEA will continue to support increases and improvements in the quality of family to school partnerships and meaningful family engagement efforts. We will continue to coordinate with other state agencies such as TWC, FSS, and the list continues, to support cross-collaborative family engagement efforts. We will identify and continue to identify and create resources and guidance to support LEA's efforts with those families. And lastly, of course, support improving the quality and accessibility of early childhood learning services that are available for our Texas families. So that concludes my update. Again, thank you so much for your time.
All right, members, any questions or comments?
Thank you, Sarah. I see your comment about the rubric. Actually, we did receive a lot of feedback from those LEAs, just saying how helpful it was in guiding them. So appreciate the comment, Sarah.
And Becky, I think your hand is up.
Yes. Brandy, how do we know, how, do you have any follow-up? You know, you can have a great plan, but and it looks great on paper, but how do you know that's actually being implemented around these plans? Are you having any follow-up? Do they have to give you any actual data to show you that it's, or is somebody looking at what's happening? Because it's easy to put a nice plan.
I agree with that, Becky. And that's one of the things we're moving towards. We actually, I think, through outreach, to answer your question, through outreach, we get to like review those plans, talk to them about how they're actually implementing it. So that's one way. And also, we're actually launching like a high quality pre-K implementation review. So it's really that, and along with our early childhood team, so really trying to check out like those plans to make sure they're being properly implemented. So we're looking at the components thoroughly. They're going to provide us with evidence that this is happening and things of that nature. So we're trying to take it to the next level to ensure that it is happening, Becky.
Good. One other follow-up is that, have you ever considered that if you're finding some really unique ideas to have on your website some model programs or whatever, because so everybody's, other people might have love seeing what other people are doing and implement some of those high quality strategies. Otherwise, they'd have no idea there could be some great stuff going on and people don't know about.
Yeah,
So having those little vignettes or something like that, exemplars, or not that this is a top program, but some ideas that other people have found successful, etc. I know people probably would appreciate it.
Absolutely. So we have tackled that in many ways. So one of the ways is, I think Megan dropped that in the chat, on our high quality pre-K family engagement webpage, we actually share exemplar samples and things of that nature to help support them. And we've also done like an office hour showcase where we've picked, like, if they fell in that advanced stage, some of those school districts fell in that advanced stage, then we had them speak about what was successful for them, what kind of resources they looked for, and how, what made them successful. So we were able to provide that platform for them to discuss those things with other LEAs to help them in their process. So we do have some of that available as well, Becky. So thank you so much for that question. It is important.
All right, members, any other questions or comments for Brandy? All right. Thank you, Brandy, very much.
Thank you.
All right, and as we move to our next slide, you'll recall at our last meeting, we agreed to establish a strategic plan work group to consider the strategic plan action items that were assigned to the Texas Early Learning Council. So Kirsten Schwab is chairing that work group, and she's going to give us an update on the first meeting that the work group recently held. Kirsten?
Thank you, Reagan. Yes, so we have a great group that's very energetic and excited about taking on this task. We had our first meeting on December 12th. There are 10 members that are in attendance, not all from the TELC. We have 4 additional folks that bring additional expertise. The agenda that we kind of acted on at our first meeting was just sort of beginning to meet each other, introductions. We talked a little bit about our roles and responsibilities. We are working on kind of going through the goals and dividing up some of this work so that folks who have particular interest or expertise can help us so we can accomplish more through this work. And we also sent out a poll this month, trying to sort of establish how those work groups will be formed. Our next meeting is January 16th, and we're looking forward to kind of digging in and really understanding better how we meet some of these goals. Any questions?
All right. Kirsten, thanks for the update. Any questions or comments? I think we're all looking forward to hearing, future reports. Obviously, there were a lot of action items within our strategic plan that the council itself can be helpful in implementing. So we're looking forward to the work group's thoughts and input. All right. Okay, so with that, we are going to move to our next agenda item, which are updates from our Texas Early Learning Council members. The first update is from TWC. Allison and Kathy are here to give a couple of updates. Actually, there's a third update not listed on this slide. So in addition to these 2 items, you'll also get an update on Texas Rising Star. So over to Allison.
All right. Good afternoon. Just barely. Wanted to share our update that Tex3C, the Texas Child Care Connection, the full system is going live on Monday. We are in the midst of our deployment right now. We kicked that off on Tuesday night. So data conversion and activities are in process, and we will be working over the weekend to bring everything up on Monday. So that does include a new statewide application for parents applying for childcare services. They will be able to access the application from the availability portal, which has already been rebranded under this Text3C brand. You will notice if you try to go there right now that the portal is not live, and that is because we are in the middle of our deployment, and the portal is part of this new, overall ecosystem for our parents. So very excited about that. And also just wanted to remind you that part of that deployment and moving to the new system will also include us moving to paying providers prospectively. Those will be like 2-week payment periods, with the first one starting on Monday. I will say that that very first payment period is not going to be truly prospective because of the transition between the systems. But as we get to that second and third payment periods, we're expecting at that point, providers should be able to expect that they will get payment for that payment period, which runs Monday through Sunday, 2 weeks, either like right before the payment period starts or maybe on the first day, like that Monday of the payment period. So we are putting out some messaging just to make sure providers are aware that there will probably be some bumps along the way. And we hope that they will be patient and work with us as we get everything running smoothly. The other thing that, of course, will also be implemented is the statewide parent share of cost. And that policy does now align with the federal requirement that the copay cannot exceed 7% of a family's income. So that does get implemented on a rolling basis. So for families that are already in care, they will maintain their current copay, but when they come up for redetermination, they will be assessed using that new methodology. So that's the big update I have on that. And then the second thing that is not on the slide is a follow-up to a request we had, I think, at the last meeting from Kim about how the Texas Rising Star centralized assessment entity is doing and what that's looking like. So we, of course, we came up against that deadline of programs needing to attain certification at the end of September. And we knew going into that we were not going to be able to hit that. I mean, the combination of circumstances with the pandemic and an overwhelming number of programs that the new centralized assessment entity had to assess, it just wasn't doable. So we have granted extension waivers to those providers that we were not able to get out and have assessed. And we're sitting at around 2,600 providers that have received those extensions. So they're still able to participate in the program while we, work on getting to them and getting them assessed. The other big thing we did, though, to speed up the assessment process was that the commission approved a waiver of one of our rules to allow us to do desk reviews and look at only those structural measures that are required for Texas Rising Star. And so being able to do that means that the assessor doesn't have to go out on site in person to do a full-blown observation. They can just review those structural measures, and if the provider meets all of those, then they satisfy the requirements for a 2-star certification. So we are moving through those, and that is allowing us to much more quickly get programs at least in the door, get them certified at a 2-star level. Of course, we had the holidays kind of intervene here, so we don't have a completely clear picture of what the new pace looks like. But based on just the difference between September and October, the CAE has basically doubled their capacity and how many assessments they can complete in a month. So that's very good news. It also means those programs start getting an enhanced reimbursement rate sooner. They have 67 assessors currently hired, and for the most part, those are all certified through the assessor certification. I think there's maybe one that is still working on their certification. And they also just I think inked a contract to start hiring some contract-based assessors that will give them a little bit more flexibility in how they're able to deploy assessors with the high travel requirements and also just sort of the shifting need around the state and where the assessments need to be happening. This is just going to give them a more flexible approach to kind of mix things up and get some more velocity going with how many assessments we're getting done. The other thing to share is that at the end of the month, this month, there is going to be a joint training event with the board, Texas Rising Star mentor staff, and the CAE's assessors. So we continue to help, facilitate the communication between those groups. That's pretty critical to the success of the program. So we do have that event happening. And yeah, I think those are the updates that we wanted to share. So I'll pause there before I hand it off to Kathy to see if any of the members have any questions they want to ask.
Allison, can you clarify the payment implementation, how providers will continue to get paid the old way as we're transitioning to the new way?
Sure. So for this first payment period, as I mentioned, it's not going to be totally prospective because we can't actually calculate the payments and they can't start processing like their drawdown requests for funds from TWC and their QA review and all of that. It takes them about a week to process it. So those prospective payments will probably go out not next week, but the week after that. But meanwhile, those payments will be for services that were provided on January 13th, Monday going forward. But meanwhile, they still have services from January 12th and earlier that will continue to be paid on a reimbursement basis until they're, trued up through January 12th. So this second half of January, providers are basically going to get double paid because of the transition. There will be that overlap between the remaining reimbursement retrospective payments and the new move to prospective. So we've, directed boards that they should make that clear on payment communication so that providers understand that they're not just all of a sudden getting a raise and we're paying them twice as much, that this is really a timing and, transition matter. But I think it will, the good news is that, we know that there will be some bumps, and that first round of payments, there will probably be things that we have to make adjustments for, and the adjustments, the way the system works, because we're paying prospectively, is that when adjustments are made, it gets applied to a future payment. So if for some reason somebody, was underpaid in that first payment cycle, the good news is that at the same time, they're getting the reimbursement payment for earlier in the month. So I think that will, probably assuage a lot of those challenges. Kim, you have your hand up.
Yeah, do you want to answer Jennifer's question, because it kind of goes with that before you jump into? I'm going to assessors. So if you want to, do you see her question? I can read it.
With the launch of the new system, are new childcare scholarships being funded? The launch of the new system is just the mechanism for parents to apply. It doesn't have anything to do with how we're funded. The funding is, that's determined by the size of our federal block grant, which is determined by, Congress. And yeah, that's not affected by this transition to the new system.
Becky, do you have a question about this piece?
Yes, I have a question. I would like a little more, because I teach at University of Houston Clear Lake, and we have the 2 non-certification programs of people that work in the child care field, and so to get their bachelor's degree. Okay, so could you please talk a little bit about, you said credit transfer or articulation agreements toward higher education degrees. Does that mean that you are trying to help other institutions set up that? Or does that you are giving scholarships for people that are in early care and education that are going back to school? If you can clarify that, that would be helpful.
So Becky, I haven't covered that. Kathy is going to talk about that bullet as soon as we finish whatever questions there are on Texas Rising Star and Text
Okay.
3C.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
You're all in one slide. It's hard.
You're
So
reading
just
ahead,
doing
Becky.
the parent application part, right?
Yeah, I'm talking about the parent application for subsidy,
Oh,
which
okay. All
may
right.
also be referred to as
Thank you.
scholarships.
Okay.
for families. Yep.
So questions about the assessors. And first, before we go to that piece, congratulations on Texas 3-4C. I know that has been a long time coming and a labor of love for for many years, I think. So kudos, and we'll send you all the good juju for Monday and next week as you guys transition. Super excited what that will mean for providers and for parents, for you all, for boards, etc. So good juju there. On the assessors, so you got 2,600 were on the waiver. So where are we percentage wise? I know childcare by the numbers is a little bit behind on what's public. So where are we percentage wise on how many of them are in the system with not counting the waivers?
I want to say we're like around, it's over 3,000. I don't know if Reagan, if you remember the number off the top of your head, but because we're sitting at like 6,000 total CCS providers. So if you subtract 2,600 from that, it should be around there.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I know that CAE has about, you said 67 assessors and they're going to contract. What's their target number? How many assessors do we need across the state? Do they have that target number of what ideally that should be?
So that has changed, I think. We've learned that their original plan is probably not enough. And so we've been working with them to ramp that up. And then, that's partly why they're implementing the strategy to add contract assessors. I don't remember off the top of my head what the new number is. And I don't know, Reagan, if you remember that, but
I don't, unfortunately, but I'm going to say they're adding about 20 additional assessors to the mix.
With the contract piece.
Oh, LaShonda is
37
LaShonda's on here. Yeah.
Oh, LaShonda. Hi, LaShonda.
So 70, yeah, because April's not here. So thank you, LaShonda. So 70 would be, FTEs at CLI, and then 37 contracted is what they're
they're contracted. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I don't know if you guys have this yet. I know because with the 2,600 that are still on the extension waivers, do we know what that wait time is from when the program is ready for assessment and by the time the assessor gets out to their program?
Well,
when do we know that, and are we tracking that, I guess is the other question.
So we are tracking metrics around this, and I'd say, they've hit a little over. Again, I have to kind of account for the holidays, but it's looking like now as we go into the new year, that they will be doing more than 400 a month. And I don't know. Okay, and there LaShonda says approximately 3 months.
Thanks, LaShonda. The ghost of LaShonda is just answering the questions. So, and I had another question and I lost it. Oh, and I'm assuming the deaths reviews, because they are coming in at 2-star, are only for providers that weren't in the TRS system to begin with.
Yeah, these are the entry level providers.
Okay, so it's not like someone who was a TRS 4 would do a death review and then only get a TRS 2. It would be entry level, haven't been in the system. Okay, all right, just making sure I clarified that correctly. All right, that was it. Thank you for the update. Appreciate it. Thanks, LaShonda.
Okay, I'm going to pass it over to.
Before you pass that over, we had another question. The question about whether we're opening up new CCS slots for parents, and that providers are reporting that families are still on the waiting list. We know that that's a fact. This IT system is not at all tied to increases in funding to provide more CCS scholarships to families. Our waiting list is now over 90,000. So it is a very, very high waiting list. We scale our program based upon the available funding that we have. Our goal this year is to serve about 155,000 children per day. That's up from 145 last year. Clearly, there's more demand than there are funds, but we scale it to the size of funding that's available. As you all know, we've increased rates over the past few years. Allison went over this at the last meeting. We've increased rates over the past few years. We update every year based on an updated market rate survey, which also results in increasing rates. As more providers become Texas Rising Star certified, they will also qualify for the higher enhanced reimbursement rate. All of those things combined mean that we're paying much more per child than we used to, which is good because providers need to be receiving a fair reimbursement for the children that they're serving. So although our block grant has increased, much of those funds have gone into those higher reimbursement rates. So we do continue to see waiting lists. Right now in our old system, our old QUIS system, boards maintain those waiting lists locally. So it's hard to know what the average length of time is that a family is on a waiting list without going to the local level. With the launch of Tech C3, we'll have data in our statewide system. So we'll have a little more real-time information that we'll be able to look at that. But yes, we do recognize that there are waiting lists across the state. So before we move to Kathy Arwood and our update on early educator credit pathway support, are there any other questions or comments from members? And Kim, I see your question about an SMIA. That's the simplified initial assessment that Allison spoke of, the desk review. Okay, Kathy.
All right. Thank you. So I'm Kathy Arwood with TWC, and finally going to get to Becky's question about the early educators credit pathways support. As many of you know, for years, members of the council have discussed the need for articulation agreements between institutions of higher ed or IHEs to support early educators along their academic pathways. And so to address that need, TWC has used PDG funds and has launched the Early Educators Credit Pathways Support Initiative. We're offering this funding to allow IHE faculty and staff time. And that would be for the applicant and then also partners. And as I go through this list that you see bulleted here, we'll talk about what that means. But, you know, articulation isn't just one IHE alone. There has to be a partner. So both of those institutions will be able to receive funding to cover the staff time to develop those credit pathways. And these are for early childhood specific courses, early education and early childhood. So these IHEs can apply for funding to support one or more of the 5 credit pathways that are listed here, or credit pathway models, that's what we're calling it. So the first one, credit transfer or articulation agreements towards a higher education degree. So this would be an agreement between a 2-year institution and a 4-year. And so the 4-year institution would apply for course credit or degree earned at the 2-year institution towards a degree program. So I know that is that's a lot, it's complicated, but I think we all understand, you know, how that articulation works, right, or credit transfer. And then the second one is credit for work-based learning, which is also a priority. So the IHE would award course credit towards an associate or bachelor's degree based on years of approved work experience completed by the student. credit for competency. This would be for an IHE awarding course credit towards an associate or bachelor's degree based on proven competencies through an exam or a portfolio, something to that effect. And then we have credit for CDA credential. So in this case, the IHE would award course credit towards an associate or bachelor's degree for earning a CDA, regardless of where that student obtained the education that went towards the credential. And then dual credit, dual credit course development with an LEA. So this would be an agreement that would allow a course taken by a high school student, maybe one that's in an early ed CTE program, or maybe it's just one early education course that would count towards course credit for both their high school and an IHE credential or degree. So those are the various models that that could be selected. I want to just kind of reiterate that this is only for public institutions of higher ed that are eligible to apply. It's a really simple application process. Eligible applications will be awarded on a first come, first served basis until the deadline, or until funding is exhausted. So we encourage you to get an application in as soon as possible, and then, share the opportunity with people that that are leading early education or early childhood degree programs. We're accepting applications through May 31st, 2025. And as a reminder, these are funded through the PDG, which ends in December. So the final deliverables that would be supporting this work are going to be due in November. So it's really important to apply early so that you have more time to work on that. And I'm going to place a link here in the chat where you can access a web page. There are FAQs and some more information listed there. And then also the application is available on that page. So with that, I'll answer any questions you have.
Questions or comments?
I have one.
Becky.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for that. My question is, we have a lot of different articulation agreements, but recently we've been working, reaching out to programs that at the community college level that do not have access to a four-year program nearby where the students can do a 2+2 articulation with the AAS to BAS, for instance. Okay. So who would this money go to? Would the money go to the university, or would it be split between the university and the community college? Because they have to be able to work. There's work on their end too, even more probably than there is on our end, because we have an already established program. So
right.
Yeah.
So the highest level, I guess, degree program would be applying. So the university would apply in this case, but then there's funding available. So when you put in the information for your budget, you would put in the budget for all of the partnering schools that are part of this. So it could be it could be a 4-year, a 2-year, and a high school, or it could be a 4-year and maybe 2 different 2 years that are, where you're using the same opportunity. So yes, as long as it's a public institution and a public LEA, then that funding can be passed down.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other questions or comments? I know for many, many years, we have heard from a lot of folks about the need to do more to help with credit for prior learning and articulation. So we're very happy to have this open application process for public IHEs to move forward with this work. Kim, did I see your hand? Can't hear you. But you're off mute, so I don't know what's going on. Can anyone else hear Kim? It's your computer.
How about
Now I can hear you.
my earbuds died, so I had to like go over and just shift. So anyway, my question is technology, man. How many do you have an estimate of how many higher ed institution partnerships you would be able to fund?
We do not right now, and that's because it really depends on the cost involved. So the budget categories that we have are for personnel and indirect, but that can vary widely, you know, between institutions and depending on how many people are involved. So it's really based on who applies and what they're working on, what they need.
All right, thank you.
I'd like to encourage all of you to, if you know, and Becky, you're the perfect example, if you know of these projects that could use funding like this, we really need member support to help spread the word about the availability of this funding.
Wait a minute. There is a group of people that are an early educator group, higher ed group here in Texas. And so there's a listserv of all of us. And it used to be separate for the community colleges and the separate one for, now we're all together. So that's a perfect place to advertise that. It's Texas Early Childhood Higher Educators Association or whatever. And so I could send the link there because those are the people that would, they're mostly on, some of them are private, but most of them are public institutions, like the different community colleges and stuff. So that's the perfect group to advertise it.
Please share, Becky, please share.
Okay, I will.
All right, any other questions or comments for TWC? All right, next slide. Do we have any other updates from council members? Stephanie.
I was just going to put my stuff in the chat. We have some new resources, including an op-ed by David on childcare in the San Antonio paper, and a number of policy briefs that my team worked hard on the last couple of months. So let me put that in the chat.
Wonderful. And we also have an update on our next slide. Sarah Abrahams and Megan Young from Family Support Services and ECI at HHSC to share some updates on grant opportunities.
Hey, Reagan. I'm going to take this one, I think, for the Family Health Services team on behalf of Megan and me. But it's really just a knowledge sharing that within Family Health Services, which is encompasses both Family Support Services and Texas Home Visiting and our HOPES program and also ECI, that there are a number of open grant opportunities. I think Megan is throwing the actual link in the chat, but this is a screenshot from this link, which really lists out all the separate procurements, their release date, which have already passed, and then the submission deadline that is upcoming. The specific details can be found within each procurement, as well as the specific contact information if folks have detailed questions or want to get more information about any one of these individual opportunities. The contact information is located within each procurement. So just wanted to call out that there's lots of stuff open and available, and I hope folks will share with their networks and check out these opportunities.
Fantastic. Thank you. All right. That takes us to our next slide and our next agenda item, which are upcoming early childhood events. So I want to open it up to members. If there are any events that you want to highlight that are coming up. All right, we're in the slow season, right?
No, we're not.
We're about to jump into
Oh.
legislative session, and so people aren't planning a lot of things because you know how busy you're going to be.
True,
That-
true.
That
I
is
do-
that is an early childhood event, right?
Yeah.
We're gonna make session, we're gonna make legislative session an early childhood event.
There you go. Stephanie. There you go.
Kim, do you?
Yeah, I do. And I'll put Lynn just put it in the chat, but we have a PN3 open meeting next Thursday, the 16th. So I will find the link and drop it in the chat so everyone can register for that. It's our partnership with us and Tex Protects and Texans Care for Children. So I focused on that 0 to 3 population. And then the other thing is, as Stephanie mentioned, legislation starts next week, which means there is an early childhood day at the Capitol coming up on March 6th. I will put a link for that in the chat as well. So more information to come. Plan to be at the Capitol on March 6th to advocate for young children. So those are the two things that are on my radar.
All right, thank you.
I should probably mention as well that we have a TLCCA conference for leadership teams, owners, and teachers in Round Rock at the Kalahari on February 21st and 22nd. So if you go to tlcca.org, I should have had a flyer ready. I have all sorts of marketing materials that I've spent a lot of time on, but be sure and visit our website and email me. I see someone's messaging me right now, but yeah, just email me if you have any questions or want some flyers to send to your members. Thanks.
Wonderful. Thank you, Melissa. All right. And sorry. So I think we just had information dropped into the chat on that TLCCA event that Melissa just spoke about. And then Kim Coffrin just dropped in the PN3 open meeting that is next week as well. So thank you guys for putting those links into the chat. All right. Any other events from members? Okay. If not, that takes us then to our last agenda item, which is a reminder for folks about our upcoming Texas Early Learning Council meetings. When we planned these a couple of meetings ago, we didn't see any conflicts. So just want to reconfirm that these upcoming dates look good for folks. Hopefully they do for the majority of the council. Our next meeting is April 11th from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Okay. Well, that brings us to the end of our meeting. Again, thank you, council members and panelists for all of the information. Thank you to the public for joining us. It is 12:38 and the Texas Early Learning Council is adjourned.